I think that's very important. Through my journey, I think the important thing was just saying, yes, I'm willing to go ahead and take that plunge. So and that's why, and ever since then, I just had nothing but success. So that's why I call it the greatest mistake I've ever made. But in terms of like, preparation or anything like that, I think it's just cultivated in a mindset. If you go into a situation saying, I'm very motivated in what I want to do and what I want to achieve, but I'm also willing to listen to anybody who's willing to mentor me and, provide me, what I need to go in the right direction. I have to be able to be able to accept that, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you see people hear things like, if I would have known that position was a Phoenix, I would have never applied, right? So that closed-minded situation. Now where would I be?
Yo, what up? It's your boy Rubino.
And this DJ in the building.
And you listening to the UpNUp Podcast.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we doing?
I don't know, just listen.
Yes. Welcome.
What it do?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned into the UpNUp Podcast on the UpNUp Network. I'm your host, Rubino.
And I'm DJ man.
How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed.
Yep, that's what's up.
Blessed, grateful, feeling good. Good vibe, good energy in the room.
Great energy in the
right?
room. Yep.
Shout out to everybody in the room. Shout out to the team. Feeling good, man. Yeah, exactly. Feeling good, man. For those of you first-time listeners, as I stated, this is the UpNUp Podcast. This is the podcast where we're focused on cultivating culture. We do that by providing amazing stories of individuals, groups, movements, right?
Yes, sir.
The hustlers, the shakers, right?
Yes, sir.
People who are taking up space, man, in various different industries, making a way, not only for us who are still here, but for the next generation, putting it down, right? So we can pick it up, right?
Yep.
And if this is your first time listening, welcome to the family. And of course, we got to shout out the family. By family, I'm referring to the listeners, the viewers, right? The squad, right?
Yes,
the people
sir.
who've been tapped in with the movement, right? Keeping everything on the up and up, right?
Yep.
Salute to you guys. We appreciate you for the love, support, and all that, right? We're gonna keep rocking. How you feeling though, man? You good?
I'm good, bro. Feeling great.
Yeah?
Ready to get this going, man.
Yeah. I know, bro. We've been warming up.
Yeah.
We've been warming up for sure.
We got a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling good too, man. I'm actually excited. Not only for the guests that we have today, but I think it's an important conversation. Yeah. I think every conversation we have, every episode we have is important, but every single one is for their own specific reason. And today's guest is a brother who I would say has definitely been grinding and attaining a wealth of knowledge. He's paying his dues so that he can pay those dues forward, right, to his people, to his community. He's definitely a true culture cultivator who's keeping everything he's doing on the up and up, right? Obviously, otherwise he wouldn't be sitting down with us right now, right? To give you guys a little bit of insight on the brother and the work he's been doing, he's been operating and building in the areas of insurance, along with financial literacy as a consultant and an advisor, and with many years of expertise in helping and assisting folks with not only understanding how to navigate what can seem like a tricky and kind of unsure space when we're talking about insurance, in that world. He's really empowering people with the knowledge to make decisions that are going to better their future, right, and give them a more safe and secure future. And we're honored, man. We're excited to have him in the building, right, to learn more about the journey he's been on and the way in which he's going to keep empowering all of us to learn and grow, right? Yep. Let's just get straight to him, man. Our guest is none other than the good brother himself, Mussa Asrat. Can we get a round of applause, man? Give it up.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me.
How you doing, boss?
Man, cold.
Yeah?
Cold. Back to this Washington weather, man. Trying to get readadjusted.
I know, man.
Cold,
Yeah.
but you got to be cold-blooded.
Huh?
For the cold.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true,
I
especially in my line.
just thought I'd add on to that. Nah, man, it's a pleasure to have you, though, bro.
Appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So if you're familiar with the show, obviously, we always start every episode with the quote of the day. Get the vibe right, get the convo started.
Yeah.
Brother man, what you got for us, man?
All right, man. So the quote of the day today is, after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are more hills to climb.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And who was that quote by?
Nelson Mandela.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I was close. I thought Biggie.
Okay.
Is that close?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
Not really, but
maybe in my mind.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
In a way.
I mean, we're all from the same family. You know what I'm saying?
It just means the grind don't stop.
He said that for Biggie.
I was thinking more money, more problems, but yeah.
That's just a different variation of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is true. I agree with that sentiment.
For sure.
You got a Biggie quote you wanna drop?
No, I thought I did, but I guess not. That was a Nelson Mandela quote.
Any other? Thank you for the quote, Herb. I appreciate it. Yeah. That was solid, man. Well, speaking of hills to climb, man, you definitely have been climbing hills in your own right, in your own way, and I think everybody can relate to that in whatever their pursuit is. But before we get into kind of your journey, I do kind of want to give you a chance to speak to when you're working as a consultant and advisor in the insurance space. I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people probably don't know what your role is or like what inspires you to actually stay in it and do that. So can you kind of touch on like what is the kind of the inspiration that keeps you in that space and like what do you love about it and how would you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, excuse me, my title would technically be insurance sales advisor. Okay. So basically, I'll get calls from people, and I'm a national agent, so I get calls from all over. I service every state except for Hawaii and Alaska. Okay. So primarily people are calling me to get quotes on auto and home. That's what I primarily deal with. And so, you know, I choose to have a different perspective on it where I go about it as every time my phone rings, I think about it as a person on the other line being either a family or a friend. So I'm like, all right, if I don't just treat this person like a customer, but more as a person who's kin to me, how would I want this to go about? So I want them to be educated on the coverages because a lot of times people don't even know what kind of coverages they're getting and how they can utilize discounts that are provided through those companies, which a lot of times they leave off the table. So that's a lot of money that can be saved. And so so what I do is I get them to open up more about their exposures is what I like to call them. You know, what do you own and what do we need to insure? And then from there, I'll try to wrap their heads around the value of their assets. And then like, okay, these are the type of coverages that are going to adequately protect you. Now, let's go ahead and try to figure out what coverages make sense for you. And then a lot of times what I'll do is review the coverages that they currently have. And then from there, I'll counsel them on what they should have and what they should not have. So so that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's a good breakdown, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take it back. Let's get into the journey. So let's talk about the upbringing. Where you're from, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so as a kid, we grew up in Holly Park, me and my brother. And then when I was 10, we moved out to Federal Way. Definitely different culture shock from growing up in Holly Park. And from there, I've just been living there ever since. And then went to Eastern, graduated there in 2011.
Go Eagles.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I was just there last weekend for homecoming, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, don't go there with a gray hair chin. I'll tell you that right now. They will know for sure you're not there. But yeah, so went there, and then a year after that, got into the insurance industry. One of my fraternity brothers was working claims out in Tacoma for an insurance company, told me they were hiring, and applied for the claims position, but I also applied for the sales position and ended up getting an interview for the sales position, and then took that on, and that journey took me to Phoenix. That was late 2013. Okay. And was there until 3 months ago, actually.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm curious because, you know, the upbringing is everything.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important, like, to reflect on kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like we go through life and there's a lot of things that we just kind of leave off the table in terms of like what may have influenced us, shaped us, that whole thing. So for you, if you can look back, is there things or people or moments that you can kind of speak to that were like, that kind of shifted your perspective? You know, because I feel like everybody has something that like makes them think differently about what they want to do in the future or how they want to move. Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely moving out to Federal Way was very pivotal for my upbringing. You know, had I stayed in Holly Park, which probably could have happened, definitely would have taken a different route. I was a good kid, but I liked doing things that kind of pushed the envelope. So, had I stayed out here, I probably would have fallen into some bad line. But moving out to Federal Way, at that time, it was just whites and Asians, and it was a very rural area. Federal Way, I don't even think was considered its own city at that time. I think it was just considered a suburb of Seattle. And I remember, the very first day, it was 4th grade, walking into my class, and it was like everybody, the door open, everybody was just white. And then this is transitioning from a place where everybody was black. Growing up in Holly Park, and it was just a culture shock. And immediately everybody took me in, and my difference I thought was going to be a liability, but it ended up being an asset. Everybody was like, who's this kid and everything like that. He's interesting. And I thought the same thing about them. And then I started, meeting their parents and seeing just being around these affluent people. I was like, wow, it's like I grew up thinking that, white people didn't want to take us in or didn't want to take any chance on us. And here these people embracing me. And I was just like, okay. So one thing I learned as an early age or in the early age is that don't given to preconceived notions, you know what I mean? So from then on, what I did was go into every situation open-minded. And then from there on, doors just kept opening up to me, relationships kept cultivating. And then from there, I was like, all right. So when I hear all these excuses people makes for their failures, I'm like, nah, that is on you. Yeah. So that is what has been so profound in my life. And it's all credited to my dad. Yeah. You know what I mean? If he didn't put us in that environment, I would have never known the possibilities that I can achieve. So, I as I look back on things, everything is very interconnected, even though they may seem very contrasting to one another. It's all about cultivating relationships. Doors open up one another, even though it doesn't seem like it's synonymous to one another. Yeah. So I always tell people, never go into any situation closed-minded. You will not know the advantages and the opportunities you'll be leaving by doing that. So
no, that's real, bro. I'm glad you touched on that too, because I think that is half the battle for a lot of people. It's like being closed-minded is like a defense mechanism.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's like, nah, I don't want to let people in, or I don't want to go in either.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's important. That's good stuff though.
Yeah.
And so you did mention going from Holly Park to Federal Way, and then Federal Way to Cheney.
Yeah.
Like that's probably another culture shock.
It was.
So
it was.
I guess what were your first thoughts and feelings when you first arrived at? Going to college and Cheney.
Well, going to Cheney, I hated it. Well, you got to remember, I'm a city kid. You know what I mean? So exactly. It's like going to this country rural area. First of all, I didn't even know there was more Washington past the mountains. I was like, oh, there's more? I thought it was Eastern Washington. I was like, there's more
Eastern
Washington?
Side of this?
Yeah. So, going there, and I just, I hated it. It just felt like prison. And then it wasn't until that first summer where I was like, oh, it's not that bad, because the friendships that I made out there allowed me to help pass time. So I became closer with the friends that I made, which ended up being my fraternity brothers. So it just went hand in hand. And then after that, I learned a lot about myself, that I do like being in places that's away from distractions, because in Seattle, or just being on the Western Washington side, it's like you got so much going on, so many friendships, people you grew up with, so you don't have time for yourself. And that's what I learned being that first year, especially at Eastern. I got to finally have time for myself. So then it was like, okay, who am I? You know what I mean? Aside from the things that was my identity growing up. Yeah. And so I ended up loving my time at Eastern, and that's where I think I really started to grow. And that's when I started to understand why people say going to college is really important. It's not just necessarily the educational part. Is you learn a lot about yourself, and you won't even know where it's coming from. Yep. So a lot of the growth that I developed in Cheney wasn't from place that were very conventional. So I was like, wow, okay, these situations are going to make me who I am going to be in the future. And I still apply some of the practices that I learned from back then. Yeah. So
I feel you, man, because I agree with you, because at the same time, you don't really notice while you're there, while you're in the moment, until you might come back home and just kind of be chilling and be like, damn. Kind of look at things differently.
Exactly.
So
Oh yeah.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. I thought it was prison when I first went out there. I was like, I pissed that off really bad. But it was the best thing to happen for me.
Yeah. And it teaches you to just stick through whatever it is you're going through. Yeah. Because there's a clear finish line that you're trying to get to. Yep. I always tell people for a lot of people going through that college experience, at least your bachelor's, it's probably the first time you've had to be disciplined and commit to something for that long period of time and go through a bunch of shit you probably didn't want to do.
Absolutely.
Just to get to that certain point, up until that point. So you're building a momentum that you can carry with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and speaking of that momentum, I'm curious, you did talk about how your homie kind of like plugged you in with the opportunity to like get the entry point to the insurance industry.
Yeah.
But from a professional development standpoint, because everybody's had that first job out of college, like what tips and advice do you have for people on how they can develop professionally, right? Not just do the job and be there and show up and go to work, but like how do you grow?
Yeah,
like what are some advice on that?
So, yeah, and I'll talk about how I actually got to where I'm at, or at least started into the insurance industry, because I call it the greatest mistake I've ever made. So what happened was one of my fraternity brothers told me that the insurance company he was working for at the time was hiring for the claims department in Tacoma. And so I went online and applied. As I saw, the locations were all in Tacoma. And then I just started scrolling down different positions and stuff, and I saw sales, which I'm more acclimated to. So I did not look at where it was located at. I thought everything that I was seeing in terms of positions was all in Tacoma. So when I applied for that, as I did with the others, the only position that I got a call back from, or at least response from, was a sales position. So, you know, they set me up for a phone interview and everything like that. I reached out to my buddy, and then, you know, he was like, all right, well, I'll prepare you. But I remember vividly that he had this kind of like this discerned look on his face. And then I was just like, I'll figure out what that means. And so anyways, he prepared me for it. And then I went through the interview process, and it was supposed to be a 2-phone interview. And on the first interview, she was like, you know what? I like everything I'm hearing from you. You have the experience and everything like that. So I'm going to extend you the position, the offer to the position. Yeah. And then I was like, great, I'll take it. And then she was like, the only concern I have is where you're located. And I was like, oh, no, yeah, you're like 10 minutes from my house. Tacoma's right next to me. And then she was like, yeah, we're in Phoenix. And I was like,
missed that part.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, this position is in Phoenix. So I was like, well, I didn't know that. You know, I thought it was Tacoma. So I quickly started thinking, I had maybe within a few months, I can't recall, but I had just visited Phoenix, and one of my best friends, he still lives out there, and I was visiting him. And I said, hey, let me get back to you within 24 hours. I just need to reach out to a couple people before I can say yes or no. And so I reached out to my boy who prepped me for the position. And then he was like, yeah, I was wondering why you were going for a position in Phoenix. And I was like, that's the look on your face. Yeah, okay, I get it now. And then I reached out to my boy who was living in Phoenix. And I said, hey, man, if I come out there for a year, can you help me get situated and stuff like that? Because I guess if I can just fulfill the role for a year, I can move back. I'll be eligible. So I looked at it as an extended vacation. So he said, yeah, we got you. Don't worry about it and stuff like that. And then I said, all right, I'll take the position. And then like 3 months later, I was in Phoenix. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because going back to being objective and open-minded on opportunities is the fear factor that is natural in us. Like, we want to stay where we're comfortable in our comfort zone. Yeah. If I was not willing to go out there and do that, I would never achieved anything that I thought was possible for me. And so I think that's very important. Through my journey, I think the important thing was just saying, yes, I'm willing to go ahead and take that plunge. So and that's why, and ever since then, I just had nothing but success. So that's why I call it the greatest mistake I've ever made. But in terms of like, preparation or anything like that, I think it's just cultivated in a mindset. If you go into a situation saying, I'm very motivated in what I want to do and what I want to achieve, but I'm also willing to listen to anybody who's willing to mentor me and, provide me, what I need to go in the right direction. I have to be able to be able to accept that, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you see people hear things like, if I would have known that position was in Phoenix, I would have never applied, right? So that closed-minded situation. Now where would I be? Yeah. Because no other positions offer me, an interview. Yeah. Only that one did. So, I think the best thing to do is just to reach out to people who are proficient in the area that you're trying to pursue, and then say, hey, what worked for you? Now, that doesn't mean necessarily their journey is going to work for you, but that doesn't mean there isn't something that you can extract from that, right?
I like that. Yeah, I like that. That's actually a really good point in terms of just kind of leaning into the unknown a little bit and being open-minded. But I'm also curious. I've always been curious, like, what what makes people not do that at the same time, right? Because is it an innate thing? Do you think it's like an innate DNA thing where it's like I'm just built in a certain way where I don't care about some of these other attachments? They're not that strong, or is it? I'm always curious about that because
fear factor.
Yeah,
it's just a fear factor. It's nothing. And like I said, I almost succumbed to it too. Like I was like, when she surprised me and ambushed me with saying, "Hey, are you in Phoenix?" and all that. I'm like, "What's going on in Phoenix? Why she keeps bringing that up?" You know what I mean? My innate reaction was, "I'm shutting this down. Right? I'm not leaving home. This is my comfort zone. This is my friends and family are at. I only know one person there, so I'm not going to take that plunge." Yeah. And so that's our innate reaction is we want to stay confined within what's comfortable for us for whatever reason. It can be risk of failure. It's just like I don't have the funds to do it. Whatever. We have different reasons, but it results to just a fear factor.
Yeah. And what I'm getting from that is like we think we have so much control over anything. Like had you known that it was going to be here, you're like, okay, nope, I want to be here. I want to control where I want to be. And you try to like really manipulate things instead of kind of just letting go and just really leaning into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff, bro.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's like trying to make excuses. You try to find a reason not to go.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We all do it for different things.
Yeah, we do it like
in different. It may not even be professional. But I'd be like, he'll hit me up like, yo, you trying to come to this party? I'm like, nah. They're like, why? I'd be like, fuck, let me figure out why.
You don't really.
No, I don't. Yeah, you don't know.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like sometimes you resist for whatever reason first. That's like the first thing we do sometimes. And I'm glad you touched on that though. It's important to lean into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So entering kind of like or transitioning into the insurance space. So what are like some of the coverages that like the main coverages that people don't really know about, I guess?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think the biggest disconnect that people have with insurance, especially we'll start with auto, right? Because that's what most people have. Is not understanding their liability coverages, right? So most people have what's called split limits. If you look at your insurance coverage in the liability portion, it'll say something like, and I believe in the state of Washington, the state minimum is $25,000, $50,000. So you'll see 25, and then you'll see slash, and then a 50, and then a slash, and then a 25. And so people are like, what does that mean? Oh, that's 25,000, 50,000. But they don't understand how it works interconnected to one another, right? So I remember like when I was in the first aid training, when they were explaining that, I was like, oh my gosh, I am underinsured. I was like, yo, I gotta call my agent and boost I was like, because I'm sitting there with state minimums thinking I'm good, I meet the legal requirements, but I didn't realize I wasn't covering my exposure and the detriment of that. So I would say there's a huge disconnect from people understanding what their coverages mean, and then also how they can utilize the deductible. So if you have to have full coverage on your vehicle, you have these two coverages called comprehensive and collision. And a lot of times people don't understand what those two coverages mean. Now, that if you're financing a vehicle, they're going to say you need full coverage. What they mean by that is you need to have comprehensive and collision. Because when you're financing, that means the bank still owns that car. That's why they hold the title and you only have the registration. So they're like, hey, listen, it's almost like when you're financing a vehicle, it's like a glorified rental car. So you're just having a rental car for, average is 5 years, 60 months, right?
Yeah.
So the bank said, this is still technically our car, and we need to make sure that vehicle's protected. So what protects the car? The two coverages, comprehensive, which means that if your vehicle sustains damage for anything outside of your control, like weather-related, vandalism, theft, you're driving, a deer jumps out in front of you, that's all comprehensive, things you can't control. And then you have the second coverage, which is collision. And that just means you physically collide into something. And it doesn't matter if it's your fault or not. It just means you collided into something and you're needing that vehicle to be repaired. That's why a lot of times when you finance a vehicle, they're like, we don't care what liability limits you have. We just want to make sure you have comprehensive collision. You can pay that deductible so that car can get fixed. And until you pay it off, we own it. That's why cars get repossessed. If you're not making your car payments and stuff like that. And if you don't have insurance, then the lien holder, which is the bank, they will impose their own insurance because that's still theirs.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they're like pretty much saying, it has to be insured one way or another. We're gonna do it for you, or you got to do it.
100%. Yeah. Like I said, it's a glorified rental car. You know what I mean? Like, we still own this car. We got to make sure the integrity of that vehicle is being protected. And one thing I really wanted to touch on with two specific coverages is understanding your liability limits, and the bodily injury and the property damage, and then the deductibles and what that looks like when you play around with the deductible limits and whatnot. So.
Yeah, no, and there's so much, and I'm almost certain there's just so much that people don't necessarily know is available. We were talking about this earlier about how sometimes it's just a lack of information and not knowing what resources are available for us. And so we just go with whatever maybe the homie told me or this person told me, or just I'm gonna just figure it out myself. Yeah. But from your experience, because aside from it being transactional, like we were talking about, it is very personal. Like, you're dealing with real people in the real world who have real families and stuff like that. What are like some of the most common mistakes you've seen made that lead people to need people like you?
So the number one thing I want to make sure people address, and we'll talk about it. What I'm about to say next is really going to encompass the topic about finance, is that a lot of people are pursuing cars that they think they can fit into their budget, but not taking into account what the insurance rates are going to be, right? So, number one thing you want to do, if you are shopping around for any kind of car, I don't care if it's from a dealer or a private party or anything like that, you want to make sure you run it by your insurance agent and say, how much is it going to be for me to insure this vehicle, right? And you want to use what's called the VIN number. All right, we get a lot of people that will call in and say, this is the year, make, and model. I'm like, do you have the VIN number? Nah, it's just a car I'm thinking. I'm like, get the VIN number, because the VIN number, which is the vehicle identification number, it's 17 characters long. It's a combination of numbers and letters, so that's how you'll identify it. And what it does is when we plug that VIN number into the system, it'll pull the year, make, and model and the safety ratings and features of that vehicle, which is why you get an accurate rate, what the insurance rate is going to be through the VIN number. So I tell people, it does not matter what vehicle you're thinking about. Just get the VIN number and tell your agent, hey, how much is it going to be based on this VIN number? They'll pull all the information from that. And so, because what happens a lot of times, and this is where I want people to avoid, is they'll call into their agent and they'll say, here's the year, make, and model I'm thinking about getting. And they'll give them some kind of preliminary quote, right? And then when you're at the dealership finalizing the deal, well, the insurance company needs the VIN number to document it. So guess what happens when they plug that VIN number into that quote? The rates change, because now it's pulling all the information that it wasn't provided before. That's why it was just a preliminary quote. So you get a lot of people at the dealership like, wait, how much is the insurance rates? And they're like, no, that's not what they quoted me. And it's like, yeah, that was just a guesstimate what it was going to be. The VIN number is going to give you the accurate rate. So you get either people that will either just say, hey, never mind, I'm not going to get this vehicle anymore, or they'll just be upset with the insurance company, like, whatever, I'm just going to get it for now, and I'm going to start shopping around, or it's just various reactions that you get from people. So I don't blame that on people. I blame that on the agents. When I get people calling in and then they're like, I'm thinking of purchasing a vehicle, I'm telling them, do you have the VIN number? They're like, no. I'm like, go get the VIN number. Just don't waste your time. Just go get the VIN number. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'll tell them why. But I just want them to prevent that situation, that they don't get blindsided at the dealership, because that does not make for, at least a sour taste in people's mouth. And they're going to blame the insurance company, which it is the agent's fault.
And it could be like a word of mouth thing too, because then they tell their friends, yo, don't work with them. Because X, Y, and Z. And everything's inaccurate.
Absolutely.
It's not based on anything factual. It's just like, you just didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's just uncomfortable. Like whether I don't think it's really it doesn't really matter what the price is and the change. It's more of like the principle.
100%. 100%.
Like, oh man.
Yeah. And the people will think that you're running game on them. They're like, wait a minute, now you're just trying to get more money out of me and stuff like that. So it's just it's just one big hassle and everything like that. So that's definitely something I wanted to make sure that people understand. Like, it does not matter if you're just thinking of a vehicle. If it's something you're wanting to purchase, just grab the VIN number. Call the dealership. Call whoever owns the vehicle and say, just give me the VIN. I'll get the quote for that, so I'll know I can afford the insurance on it. Yeah.
No, that's good stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yep. I am curious though. So you've been working and really just doing your thing in this industry for some time now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, because no matter what anybody does, when you do something for a long period of time, there's gonna be ups and downs. There's going to be moments when you know you're good at what you do. You know how to do what you do. But how do you stay inspired? Like what do you do to make sure you're staying inspired, you're staying challenged, you feel like you're growing? Like what does that look like for you?
So for me, I mean, when you think of the volume of calls that I take, so I'm a little bit different in my situation. I'm a national agent, so I service all states besides Alaska and Hawaii, right? I don't have the licenses for those states, so I get a good grasp and pulse on like people's finances and stuff like that. So a lot of times you'll get people shopping around for insurance because they're in some kind of financial constraint. You know what I mean? So one thing that I guess it would be the primary thing that always motivates me about my job is when you're able to change the course of somebody's perspective on either insurance or just in their situation. So people always leave the call with me, whether they buy from me or not. They always say the same thing. This is an interaction I've never had with another insurance agent, because my mentality going into every single interaction is, imagine that's your family that just answered that called you, right? How do you want this to go? So that's the way I approach it. So I break down everything to them, and then and believe it or not, and I have been reprimanded for this, I'll turn people away. I'm like, listen, based on everything that you have, my company's not a good fit for you, but I will recommend you to another company, and I get nothing from it. You know what I mean? Because for me, I want to make sure agents are not ripping off people. Because when I'm reviewing, people's policies and whatnot, I just see, I'm like, you don't need this, and I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, do you have this in your household? They're like, no. Then I'm like, you don't need this, because what happens is, what's unique about my situation versus most other agents is that agents get paid on a percentage of the premium. So they want the cost of the insurance to go up because they can get based on a higher percentage of that. Whereas me, I get the same pay whether I sell you $1 policy or $1 million policy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So for me, I'm more incentivized to make sure I educate the customer. I'm like, hey, listen,
there you go.
I'm like, hey, let's talk about your exposure.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll figure out how to adequately protect your exposure. And if I don't have the number that you like, then check out this company. But make sure you're shopping at these coverages.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And by exposure, you're referring to kind of areas that you need to improve on, or
absolutely. Because the first thing you'll do, or I'll do when I receive calls, is I hear people always say, "I just want the bare minimum." Like, I get it. You want to pay the least amount on insurance and stuff like that, but you got to think of it this way. What is insurance? All right. And I think that's where people have lost the idea of what insurance is about. Insurance is about covering not only your exposure, but covering debt that you can't pay. So for instance, if you hit me in my car today and I sustain, let's say, $30,000 in bodily injury, can you pay that today? No. If the answer is no, well, that's what insurance is for. So a lot of times we'll get people who will just make I just want the state minimum, or just make very frivolous claim. And they're like, well, what's the point of insurance? And I go, well, this is the point of insurance. It's to say, hey, what you can't cover, we're going to intervene and cover for you. So we're going to charge you X amount of money for tens of thousands of dollars in protection. So and people have to really understand that. And so when you're coming in and saying, all right, I just want the state minimum, well, first of all, understand what coverage that is in your state. And then ask yourself, if you hit somebody and you cannot cover the coverage amount that's on your insurance, then you probably need to go higher. And insurance is not the first place you want to start cutting costs, because in times of economic turmoil, the first thing people do is say, let's call an insurance agent. We got to bring that down. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But they're not realizing by cutting coverages, you're cutting tens of thousands of dollars in coverage when you're only trying to save nickels and dimes.
Gotcha.
So it's not even worth it.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, it's important on it's important on who you work with.
Absolutely.
It could change everything.
Absolutely.
Man.
Yeah.
And I know you were touching on vehicles and stuff, but I mean, as a normal person, I kind of get the idea of car insurance, but when I think of something like a house, I'm just I don't even know where to start. So I guess what's the flip side of that?
So a house is a little bit different. Okay, so a lot of times you'll get people calling in on their auto, especially if they have their auto and home together, right? They're saying, all right, these are the coverages I have. I want to compare it to exactly the same coverages you have. So the first thing I'll say to people is, how do you know you're adequately protected? How do you know those are the right coverages you're supposed to have? No, I don't know. That's what my agent gave me.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
And then let's see if your agent is doing right by you, right? So with the home is different because as far as insurance goes, we need to know how much it's going to cost us to rebuild that home from scratch if it experiences just complete destitution, right?
Gotcha.
Like it has just been burned down. We got to rebuild that from scratch, let alone
so
make
that's
repairs.
that's how they factored the cost.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's two kind of values to your house. There's the market value, right? That's the buyer and seller activity, based on like, school district ratings and things like that. That's the market value, right? Insurance, we don't care about none of that. We don't care if you got the house for free. We don't care if you paid $1 million. What we need to know is labor, parts, material, and the square footage of your home, because that is what we need to reconstruct your home from scratch.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times that very first coverage in your homeowner's policy is coverage A, which is dwelling. You'll see it say replacement cost. So a lot of times people will look at that replacement cost. They're like, that's not how much my house cost on the market. We're like, we don't care what it costs on the market. We need to know based on those 4 criteria what it's going to cost us to reconstruct it. So a lot of times people will call in and say, all right, this is what I have for the replacement cost. And we're like, well, do you know if that's the current replacement cost market value for your house?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't. Well, then we don't need to be having that conversation, because every insurance company, when it comes to homeowners, what you're saying, they have a tool to assess based on their underwriting guidelines what they deem will be the cost to replace that home from scratch. That's why if you shop around for insurance, for homeowners in particularly, you'll get different numbers for the coverage A, the dwelling, because each of them will have their own tool to assess that replacement cost. So don't try to align the replacement cost value with the insurance is saying based on what the market value is. Because, listen, when 2008 happened, and the housing market crashed, and I bring this up to all my, especially first-time homeowners, because they're like, wait a minute. Detroit still had houses a decade later that was still you can buy for like $20,000, $30,000 because of the housing market crash and never recouped, right?
Yeah.
But do you think that's going to cost $30,000 to reconstruct that home? No, it may cost $200,000 to reconstruct. So if you're sitting there following the market value, you're going to say, all right, insurance agent, make my coverage day for only $20,000. And they're like, okay. And they'll sell you that policy. And then let's say that house burns down, and then you're like, oh, I only got $20,000. It's going to cost me $300,000. That got to come out of your pocket.
That's crazy.
And you'll be surprised how many times I've had that conversation. The last one I had was a guy in Texas that happened to, and it was kind of a sad story, man. He's got family and everything like that, and they were homeless for a while because that situation happened for them. So I always tell people, listen, man, just shop around. Don't say this is my current coverages when it comes to homeowners. Just see what the insurance company's willing to offer you and at what price. That's the best way to go about it. But you have to know there's 2 values to your home. There's the market value and there's the replacement cost value. And insurance only looks at the replacement cost value.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's a gem, bro.
Yeah, that's a gem. Great breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and I love that you're sharing that, because there's people who know that, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. Good for them. And salute to them, and hopefully they're sharing that information. Right?
Yeah.
I was reading this article earlier through a platform called ClearTax, and they were talking about millennials and insurance. Like they're just kind of talking about that relationship.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes said, things are much more simple and easy now. Millennials think that there's still so much time in life where they reach a point where they need insurance. And as said earlier, the sooner you start, the lower the cost is. So from your experience and kind of like how you see it, what advice would you give to kind of the millennial generation in terms of how to really take it seriously or be urgent and think more quicker when it comes to this space? Yeah,
absolutely. So one thing that we are definitely seeing, the younger generation is more with the space of technology, right? So, they want things to be streamlined, to be quicker, and then just easier to handle and things of that nature. But they're not understanding the coverages that they have. And I talk to a lot of young people too as well. So, it's one thing I would do is just challenge your insurance agent. When they put together a policy for you, say, hey, can you tell me what each of these coverages mean and how does it protect me? Because as much as I counsel and advise everybody, they are ultimately the boss and they have the final say so, the customer. Yeah. They're going to be like, I'll be like, hey, this is the coverage you need to actually be having to protect your exposure. And they're like, yeah, that's okay. I'm willing to take the risk. All right, you're the boss. Yeah. But I can sleep at night knowing that I gave you the best advice that I can. That makes sense, yeah. I think with, the millennials and things of that nature, they're just like, their approach to it, and I think that's true with a lot of people, but they're more in abundance, is that I just need to have this so I can drive this car off the lot. Yeah. So do whatever you got to do to make sure I do that and do it at the lowest cost possible, right? And in millennials, they do not like to spend time on the phone. Like older people, man, those be like an hour, 2 hour calls. With millennials, you'd be off the phone like 15 minutes. They're
like, what do I need?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
All right, peace.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. And I'll try to tell them like, hey, maybe share this. Yeah, I'll worry about that later. Hey, can we hurry up? And I'm like, all right.
It's the era of convenience, bro.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Streamlined.
It's crazy. Yeah, we want everything, to be instantaneous. And, listen, it's not fun talking, insurance. I don't even like doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I love my job,
but you make it sound fun. You make it sound interesting.
Because it's pivotal.
Yeah, because it's important, but you're breaking it down in a simple term, streamlined term for the millennials out there. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we need. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why you're here.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important that people understand because what you see is the acquisition part of it. You see the commercials, you can save money and all that, and people are calling, but what you don't see is the retention side, so the claims and all that, and then people are like, wow, I didn't realize I was so under, insured, and then you're starting to see wage garnishment, liability cases and things like that, and it gets really ugly really fast. And so, and I always blame the agent for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're just trying to make a quick buck. Like I said, they make a percentage off the premium.
Yeah.
So.
This is important stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, it is. All the, this is like all the boxes I have to check before I get a car, house, whatever.
Yeah,
all that.
And sometimes it's like it's okay to say, yo, I don't know anything.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Let me go find who does.
Yep.
Because sometimes, a lot of times, people just want to figure shit out themselves.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why. Like I don't know what it is. I'm the same way. I think everybody has that a little bit.
It's ego.
Yeah, ego. Like I got this. I'll figure it out. Yeah. But nah, bruh. Just sit down and let someone else figure it out for you, and you make that decision.
Yeah,
based on the facts.
Yeah,
And there's another type of insurance I know that you kind of dibble dabbled a little bit in. It's kind of I'm starting to see it kind of pop up, and people kind of start talking about it. But life insurance, which is definitely something that's really important. I think.
Yeah,
absolutely. Still learning it, but so what are like some of the things you took away from like your experience with that?
Everybody should have it. You know what I mean? As much as we mandate state to state auto insurance, I think we should mandate life insurance. And people have this notion, I don't have that much stuff. If I die, I die and stuff like that. And a lot of these people be parents. It's like, yo, you got kids. You know what I mean? And then okay, you might not have a lot of things to protect or anything like that you value, but what about the funeral cost? You're just going to just parlay that to the kids, make that a burden on them. Like, life insurance, everybody should have it. First of all, it's not that expensive as much people think. And if you're young, the better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and then on top of that, life insurance has, it's come along so far, you know what I mean? And now there's a lot more living benefits to a life insurance than there are death benefits. For instance, my life insurance, I won't say what it is. I don't want to get killed on these streets. But as far as like the living benefits goes, there's a portion of it. I have a universal whole life, and there's an investment aspect to it. So there's money, cash value that's being generated on the side every year without me having to do anything.
Just staying alive?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then once it reaches a maturity level, everybody will vary, of course, depending on age and whatnot. But once it matures, I can actually draw from that while I'm alive. Now, and then there is the death benefit portion of it, right? But there's a lot of things that you can actually benefit from while you're alive from life insurance.
Wow.
And
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want people to know, because I get this a lot when I bring up life insurance in my line of business. If you have life insurance through your employer, you should probably double check what all the stipulations are, because a lot of times people think that, if I die, my company got me. But a lot of times what we have seen is that if you're on any kind of leave or you're not in like employee status and you die, they can actually nullify that. You
Wow.
won't even have no benefit. Yeah.
Damn.
So we have learned that. There are companies that are like, you can be like, right now I'm on short-term leave, right? For my back, I'm going through rehabilitation. Now, I have my own personal life insurance, but let's say I had it through my employer. If I died right now, I might not get any benefit from my company. So there are companies that are out there that do that. And so, and then if you switch companies, they can just simply, all that premium you paid into that, that's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
you know, you really need to be making sure what are the benefits that you're getting with your life insurance, but everybody should have it.
Yeah.
Everybody should have it. And if you're older and if you think you can't qualify because you're in your 60s or 70s, well, then there's what's called funeral benefits, right? It's like, you know, all right, well, at least I can qualify for a $20,000 funeral benefit insurance. That way I'm not having to, you know, make the whole community pitch in for my funeral.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I won't say who or what, but
Yeah, I think it was
I hear
just
you.
it's just one of those things that never got like really highlighted.
Yeah.
Like I never really thought about life insurance.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's kind of scary when you think about it. You know, 'cause
Absolutely.
You're thinking about like, what if you pass? You know, which
Right.
a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Like think about, but I think it is important, so that's why.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like a double whammy. It's the overwhelming thought of that, and then
Yeah,
it's also the
exactly.
overwhelming thought of, damn, I don't even know this shit.
Yeah.
Right? So like the information I always be thinking about this. Like as we grow, right? Like we're always unlearning shit, but we have to learn at the same time. We learn new stuff, we unlearn stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be overwhelming. Like,
yeah.
damn, I'm so busy trying to unlearn this stuff and break these old habits, and then simultaneously bring on some new stuff. So I feel like, you know, people got to kind of give themselves grace a little bit.
Yeah.
And just, you know, like kind of gradually become more knowledgeable over time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, this is not fun stuff. I mean,
for
like
sure.
this isn't. That's why I say I think it's a failure on the agents that are not willing to, you know, break it down into layman's term and how they can be able to convey the message that can, you know, truly be received by who they're speaking to. So, you know, one thing that I do really well is I get a gauge of who I'm talking to, and I'm like, okay, if I deliver it this way to this person, then they'll be able to make sure that they can take in the information and it can really be profound to them. So, yeah.
Being and it's like, man, we just got to be more proactive than reactive, and it's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes you're so occupied and being proactive in other things that are more priority, and then you're reactive to things that you probably should be more proactive to. So, it's a balance, man. But yeah, man, you've been dropping some gems, man.
Real.
But you ain't new to this. You true to this, right? This ain't new to you. I am curious though. Earlier we were talking about kind of the difference between kind of like being transactional with customers and clients, and then, but just in general, right? Whether you're in your line of business or just anybody out there who's a professional, we talk about this sometimes, being at networking events, things like that. Like from your take, like the transactional interactions versus the organic and natural ones. Like, can you kind of speak to that a little bit in terms of like how you've seen it play in your life and kind of your success? Yeah,
absolutely. So, you know, me naturally, I'm a people person. So I try to get people to open up from the very beginning of our interaction. And so you'll get people that are just be very curt. You know, I'll ask them a question and they'll just be like, you know, give me one word answer. I'm like, okay, this person's not trying to talk. So they're just trying to get down to the mustard of it all, and then just, and then just want to get to the number. And sometimes I'll have some success where I can get those people to even open up, and then it'll change the course of the conversation. But for the most part, though, I do get a lot of people that will open up because I'll try to identify a pain point with them. You know what I mean? Whether it's personal, professional, whatever it is. And then I'll try to somehow, you know, relay that with insurance. And so I'll always start with what has you shopping around for insurance? You know what I mean? And then they'll tell me. The most time you'll hear price. Yeah. I'm like, that's it? I'm like, well, actually, this is what's been happening as well, too. Yeah. And like, why is it? And then all of a sudden they start flooding you with questions, and then that aggravation comes out. And I'm like, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to open up that scab so that way I can stitch it up with some healing, you know, the right way by educating them. Yeah. And then I'll say, hey, this is why this is, but we can actually modify this, and this will actually, you know, pertain to your advantage. And so, you know, for me, I could tell really quick, you know, on the call, because I've been doing this for a while, you know, who just wants to be transactional. And a lot of times those are the people that'll just call in first starting saying, I just want the lowest rate possible. You know, I don't even like y'all. I don't even want to be doing this and stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, I don't blame you, bro. I didn't want to answer your call. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't like you neither, but we're going to figure this out. But, you know, it's, you know, all jokes aside. And I'm like, I get it, you know. And then throughout the course of the quoting process, you know, either they'll remain that way, they'll be very rigid and just give you one-word answers. You'll give them the rate, and they're like, nope, I don't want it, click, or yep, I'll take it, click. Or they'll just may have some you know, some questions. Yeah. And then for the other people that are willing to open up, like I said, I'm very good at doing that, and they will go ahead and just divulge everything. I'm like, oh boy, okay, I didn't need that much information, but this is good because I need to know where your exposures are. I want to know what has you shopping around. I want to know what you want to accomplish, and I want to see if I can even accomplish that. Because I want to save my time. Because if I can't do anything for you, I got people that I can, you know, take care of. So this is a mutual benefit here. But my strength to my success is that because I'm not afraid of objections, and I am a people person. I love to talk. I like to get to know people, even though that's going to be one call interaction. So I get people to put down their guards. And then from there, I'll just go ahead and lay in my expertise and just say, hey, this is what we need to be doing.
No, and part of the reason I brought that up was obviously in your line of business is very important, right? Yeah. But you know, I think anybody here can attest to it. Like sometimes like people are so transactional when they're like dealing with people. Yeah. Like, oh, I know this person does this, so I can probably get this from this, as opposed to like the organic, natural thing, whereas I already know what you do. Yeah. But if it doesn't line up, maybe timing ain't right, then it's cool. Yeah, but absolutely. The relationship is what's most important. You know? Yeah,
absolutely. I think people who should start approaching, you know, even auto insurance quotes, something simple as that, is you should be asking your agent questions like, hey, you know, not only am I legal, but is this enough to cover me? You know what I mean? And so because where people get that rude awakening is during that claims situation. They're just like, oh, I didn't have that coverage, or oh, I didn't have enough. So all that has to either come out of my pocket or wage garnishment, or, you know what I mean? It's like I said, it gets ugly really fast. So best thing to do is just say, hey, what's my exposure? And then from there, shop rates. You know what I mean? So,
Got you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, transitioning into like stocks, I know you kind of jumped in there too, and it was a pretty, I would say kind of like revolutionary kind of time that kind of happened this past couple of years. So, like, what was your experience when you jumped in and started kind of like what piqued your interest, pretty much?
So, my buddy that I was talking about that lives in Arizona, he's my best friend. He used to always bring up stocks, and now my dad's been doing stocks for probably 20 some odd years now. And I just had no interest in it because I don't like putting my money on something that I can't control. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I wasn't a fan of that. But when the pandemic hit, I remember in March of 2020 when we're like, all right, it's official. This is a pandemic. You know, you're watching the stock market decline and everything like that. And my buddy was like, hey, man, we need to get into the stock market. Everything's cheap right now. So I called my dad up, and then I was like, hey, Dad, you know, I got some money, and I want to get into the market and stuff like that. He's like, great. So, you know, he told me what stocks to pick and stuff like that he was doing. And I didn't know what to expect. You know, I created the account. I put money into it. I was buying stocks when he told me to and stuff like that. I didn't know what was to come from it. Now, this is the same kind of idea that that I live by when it comes to somebody saying, I've never gambled before, but I'm going to play blackjack. I'm like, I hope they lose so they never do this again. I went into the market and I just started winning right away because what happened was Tesla just went on this tear, right? And so that's where most of my money was at. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, this is free money, you know? And then I'll never forget, it was September. The Tesla stock split, and I'm just sitting there with just all this cash, and then for like the next 2 months, it's just drained. And I was just like, oh, that's not fun. So what that made me do was say, okay, I need to start paying attention to the details. Now, we're kind of experiencing that now. Right now, we're in what's called a bear market. And so if you see a lot of stocks, they are just well below even pandemic days. So for me, this is where I like to build wealth. And that was something that a mentor of mine told me, my mentor in Scottsdale. He said, you build wealth during a bear economy or a down economy, and then you become rich when it becomes bull. So once the economy turns around, all the positions you took will now start to to monetize.
Gotcha.
And so you start to reap the benefits of all that. And I'm like, okay, so right now I'm building my wealth until this market figures itself out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, I feel you, man, because even me, it's like, I mean, I kind of dibble-dabbled in that too. And you see people pulling out their money as soon as they see everything going down. And I'm just like, man, everything's on sale pretty much. That's how I view it. You know? So it's like, it's going to recover. You just got to, be willing to kind of like play with it, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most people, the reason why I believe that they lose in the market is because they can't stomach it watching going down. They're like, oh, there goes all my money. Yep. But one thing that my dad told me, which I was like, oh, okay, that was very profound. And I was like, I needed to hear that. He's like, you don't ever lose the money until you sell. When you sell, now you're selling at a loss. He goes, but as long as you hold the shares, that money can be retrieved and can go up. He goes, that's why it's important you choose which company to take position in. Companies that are not only just doing well, but that you see doing in the foreseeable future.
Like companies you believe in.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want some like flyby, unless you're some kind of day trader or something like that. But for me, I'm in it for the long haul. So the positions I take are companies that are going to be, leading the charge through the future.
Like a true shareholder.
That's how I like to think. I'm like, that's my money, you know what I mean? But I don't think of it as dollars anymore. I think of it as shares. I'm like, I just want to have a certain amount of shares, and once I reach that goal, I just don't look at it anymore.
Because it's only like I've heard that a term called like a paper loss. You only lose on paper. You don't really lose in real life until you sell.
Until you sell. That's when you lose that money. That's so you don't ever lose until you sell the shares.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
You sitting on such wealth of knowledge, man. It seems like it's exciting to be able to pay for it and express it. Yeah. Because I was having this conversation. I know there's a lot of people out here. There's people out here who are knowledgeable. They got all the knowledge, but sometimes they just need a chance to like, yo, let me tell y'all what the hell I know and why y'all need to know it. So definitely appreciate everything you've been sharing with us thus far, bro.
Absolutely.
Now I am curious, for your kind of outlook, your viewpoint, like what excites you for the future, for your future? What do you see? Like what are you looking forward to?
Oh man. So right now, it's everything's just at a stalemate. So it's just like, okay, until we can figure out this geopolitics and the economy and the inflation and everything like that. For me right now, I'm excited about the investments that I'm making. So, which is primarily the stock market,
Gotcha.
And so, for me, I've been through it all. So I'm like, okay, I get it now. So just take positions and then just remain optimistic that the market will turn bull, which it will. You know what I mean? The hardest part about the market is timing it. And that's for anybody. You go back to the historical data and look for trends, which is what analysts do, even on Wall Street. But no one can truly predict the market. But we do know that it will become bull. You know what I mean? Unless we just eviscerate ourselves from the world. So that's what I'm most excited about. This is the first time I've ever been excited, and I hate to say this, but I love seeing the economic turmoil we're in, because this is an opportunity to become rich. You just got to be patient.
It's a perspective thing.
Absolutely. And I get it. People are going to get hurt from it. You know what I mean? And but as an investor, for me, I just look at it as an opportunity.
Well, a lot of people say obstacles are opportunities. Right?
It is.
So
absolutely.
About how you feel it.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it, man. So is there a place where people can tap in with you if they did want to, bug you and annoy you with questions?
I didn't even think about that.
Get that info.
Yeah, I guess Facebook would be the one.
Okay.
I have a couple. I don't know why.
Okay. You can give us some info. And we'll make sure to plug it in.
Okay. I'm not really big on social media. Okay. Unless you're on Snapchat.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. Well, we definitely appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Coming here and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, bro. It's important.
Yeah,
it's important. Absolutely. It's important to pay it forward. And for the listeners and viewers out there, I know they definitely they got some stuff today, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, before we get you out of here, we always ask all our guests this question. So, if you can, my brother, what's one word to describe what keeps you on the up and up, and why?
I would have to say humility. You know, through everything I've been through, I understand, you know, being humble and being a people person and things of that nature. Like, I try not to get caught up in my accomplishments or anything like that, because for me, the journey doesn't end until I'm laid down 6 feet. So for me, as long as I can remain humble and whatnot in my endeavors, then I believe that my success will continue to grow, because I believe that's what's got me this far so far. So yeah, I'd have to say humility.
I love it, bro.
Yeah.
I love it. Humility, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Everybody needs it. Everybody gotta have it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it, man. Just breathing. You know what I'm saying? And this one on a grateful note, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Mussa, man, we again, we appreciate you, man, and you know we wish you much success moving forward. Always.
Appreciate it.
You know you got support with us here at the UpNUp. Always.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys.
You know we go way back, a little ways back.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit. Yeah, man. But outside of that, man, for the listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this has been a beneficial, fruitful conversation, right? And with that being said, I think it's safe to say Mussa Asrat is officially a member of the UpNUp. Can we get a round of applause? Give it up.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Good.
Thank you,
Thank you,
man.
man.
Appreciate you,
guys.
bro.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Erm. Appreciate you guys.
To continue supporting the podcast and the entire UpNUp movement, be sure to rate, review, like, and subscribe.
As well as follow us at _ the UpNUp on all social media platforms to stay connected with everything the UpNUp has coming your way.
Thanks for listening, and until the next one,
Keep it on the UpNUp.